we keep talking about level setting. That's been our term for the entire process. And I do think that that is a very critical piece and maybe something we could explain a little bit more, because I think it was it's not like it was a specific thing we did. I think the framework helped guide us, and the exploration of terminology together as a team really helped there too. But I feel like that is a critical piece of having team cohesion, or at least starting to build the trust and feel more comfortable to go into the discussions that are required to whatever level a team is able to dig into
So
those.
one of the things that we were really thoughtful about at the outset was the importance of getting the team to all be in alignment, not only with the plan of the equity audit, but the fundamental concepts underlying it and the framework. So the equity in the center framework and the terms within. And so one of the things that we found really important at the outset and at stages throughout the process was to really spend some time talking about the terminology, discussing and ensuring that we had an understanding of not only what terms around racial equity meant, but how they apply to the work of case of our organization. And then practicing that throughout the equity audit process. So when we were developing rubrics, for example, we would go back to the terminology and ensure that we understood what the term meant before we moved into setting targets and action steps towards moving the needle in those areas of equity. So we found it incredibly important, not only for activating the work, but also in building a trusting team dynamic where we could wrestle with these issues in a way where we were speaking some of the same language, we were talking about concepts in a similar way, and we're able to move forward as a collective.
So an important component here is having common frameworks, a common lens that we can take, because this work can easily diverge so much that it becomes meaningless. So having something that focuses us, what is the real topic we're talking about? Level setting was important here because it allows us to all speak from the same language, or at least understand what language we're speaking, what do terms mean.
So I think to this point about level setting, I actually think that's a place where I would be critical of us. And I think would cite doing some level setting, some norm setting is really important. And we did not have as much time or I think resource to do that. So I think our efforts were focused on reading the framework, which we did together, right? We had an exercise where we talked about some of the terminology in the framework, how and where we wrestled with the terms when we first learned about things, terms like white dominant culture or microaggression, for example, and had a really nice discussion. And our plan was to do some professional development together, to have follow-up sessions around that. And I think that in my experience, I think we took for granted the need to do quite a bit more of that, both at the outset and perhaps throughout, because um, I think fundamentally we may have had some places of making assumptions about where each other stood as it related to equity, because I think we all agreed at a very significant but perhaps 30,000 foot level, right? That this is important, that there's opportunity to be reflective, there's a need to really dig into cases history and practices. We were all aligned on that. But I'm not sure that, and I can speak for myself, I'm not sure that I could speak with confidence about each team member's position or positionality on some of these issues. And I'm curious about it. I don't find that to be problematic beyond thinking it could have enriched our process, right? If we had spent more time in the concepts, in the personal experience, in the how we view the work. So I think that if I was to think about a recommendation for an organization looking to do this work, it would be to invest a significant amount of time at the outset, but also throughout to um, identify where there's alignment, but I also think importantly where there might not be alignment, right? So that we're doing work with transparency and authenticity, but also recognizing there is a diversity of opinions and perspectives. And we are seeing this work differently, and that can actually be really meaningful. I just don't think we had the time or made the time to really consider that in the ways that we might have and the ways that we wanted to.